Welcome to the Sonoma Racing Report for the 2020 iRacing Rallycross preview show, just as we did last year. And now, our officially qualified Rallycross guest for the World Championship, Bo Albert. Congratulations, you've got the license.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I was doing the preview show last year, and that was without a license. And I said to you that, you know, in 2020, I was going to make things right. I was going to get that license, and you know, a very long 13 weeks of the pro qualifying series as everyone else has done. And we got there. So we've got an Australian back on the grid.
Yeah, it was a very long season 3, 13 weeks, obviously with the balance that iRacing was trying to get in that whole thing. But for you and I, we only live less than an hour apart from each other. And our state is being hit by the coronavirus, the worst in Australia. So apologies for the beanie, ladies and gentlemen. I just haven't had a haircut in God knows how long. I don't know how you look, Bo. You said the beard's growing a bit too much there.
No, absolutely. It's looking a bit worse for wear. It's long overdue of a cut. So we're both suffering a little bit too much here in Victoria. It's not helping the appearances in any way.
Yeah, I read an article the other day about people searching for underground, like the black market for hairdressers to get illegal haircuts. And I was like, all right, I think it's getting a little bit too far now, but lockdown's been a while, but hopefully, you know, we're on the mend. Our state's getting there. Virus cases, we only had 14 today. So I'm hoping that it gets to, you know, ideal goal is 0. But anyway, we're here to preview Rallycross and the World Championship. We're going to do everything as we did last year. Preview the drivers, who we think is going to win the 2020 title. We've got a strong pool of talented racers, not only returning, but what about the new ones, the rookies? How will our rookie class fare? That's been a discussion, a lot of arguments, a lot of debate over how strong this class is. I'm sure Bo will say it's the strongest class of all time because he's involved. But not only are we going to do that, but we've also got some other new changes to look at in form this season. And it all starts, Bo, by looking, ironically, at none of those changes at the 2019 standings that we will... The controversial thing about this is the points... And we got a new point system, which we'll look at in a second. But for Mitchell de Jong, he missed 2 rounds. He lost out in the championship. Do we think he was the better driver last year, despite Sami-Matti Trogen impressing and winning the championship?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go off of win percentages, then absolutely. Mitchell, whenever he rocked up, which of course was not every round, he was always at the front. He was always winning races, you know, right up towards the front. And with the points format we had last year, that's what you needed to do. You needed to be scoring the wins and you needed to be at the very front. So not like getting good results in the heats was good, but it wouldn't give you the points you needed to score well in the championship. And that's where Mitchell was very strong. Whenever he was racing, it was always at the very front of the feature. But when you're missing 2 rounds because you're doing the world's fastest gamer, there's only so much you can do and so much grounds that you're going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And no disrespect to Sami-Matti Trogen, because he had one of the most splendid campaigns anyone's ever seen for a world championship, made every feature race, which is important. And he well deserved the championship. But even he said, you know, he wasn't, I don't want to say necessarily surprised, but, you know, Mitchell was, it can be argued, obviously, in my opinion, was the best driver, but Sami-Matti Trogen deserved the championship. There's no question about that. But this season, we've got a new point system, and here it is up on screen. The difference is now, look at the difference between the hat tricks there. 84 points for a hat trick, which is if you score a qualifying pole, a heat win, and a final victory in the feature, compared to 29 in 2020. Are you a fan of this new system?
I am, because what this new format means is there's not a massive reliance on getting into the feature now, because what we saw last year was quite a large difference from first to last in the championship, because the top drivers were able to make the feature consistently, whereas the drivers in perhaps the second half, if they didn't make the feature, they were practically scoring 10 or less points for the entire round. So it meant the gaps ended up quite spread out. We didn't get the championship fights that we'd love to watch throughout the season. So what I think this new format's going to do, it's going to mean closer championships for us. And it also means we're going to get a much better idea of who the most consistent driver is over the season, because now it's not just about those big results. It's about maintaining your pace over the entire season.
Yeah, 100%. So we rescored the old seasons. We've only ever had 2 for the World Championship, so it didn't really take that long. And here are the top 10 from each of those seasons. 2018 doesn't change a lick. But for 2019, look who's rewarded now, Bo. It's actually the opposite of what you said. The either less consistent drivers or the drivers who missed rounds have improved their position in the championship.
Yeah, of course. So the drivers like Yohann Harth, who did have a bit of an up and down season, but when it came to his bad days, you know, he was still managing to get very, very close to getting through the features. So even though he didn't make the features, he was always the next car that would have made the feature on his bad days. And because of that, his consistency was quite strong and was able to score points throughout the season on his bad days that eventually meant that he went up all the way up to third in the championship rather than sixth. So for someone like Yohann, that's really, really good for him. But of course, the big talking point is a complete change in our champions of the season.
I mean, that's fascinating. The fact that Mitchell de Jong would have won the championship despite missing a couple of rounds. And look how low the gap is. That's just, I think I remember Sami-Matti Trogen had an awful feature race at Sonoma one round. And that's the difference in the championship, really, for him. So despite being really consistent and making the features, the new point system is not that rewarding for the very talented Finn. But the good news is, as you said, for Yohann Harth, I mean, at the end of the day, if you still look at the points, he still doesn't win a championship, does he, Bo, by finishing third? He's up there. He improves his positions, but I still think he needs to find that little bit of extra oomph and consistency that he needs, figuring out the mental side, avoiding the incidents, and all that stuff. Because, again, for this season, as we switch to the calendar, we've got 9 rounds for everybody. And we start at Hell in a week's time. I'm most sad for you, though, mate, because your best circuit here is not on the calendar of Daytona Short.
I am absolutely devastated about that. For those that were keeping an eye on the pro qualifying series, that was the rounds where I managed to get my big victory, got the biggest points haul of the season for myself. And iRacing rewarded me for that victory by just taking it off the calendar entirely. So... it's a little difficult, but I mean, look, there's some great circuits in there. Either way, we're going to have a lot of fun.
The thing I like about this circuit is we've only, this calendar, I mean, is we've only got one European circuit. Some people love Hell, some people hate it. I actually really enjoy it. I'm happy to see it twice on the calendar. But how about Sonoma appearing twice? It's by far one of the most entertaining circuits we've got on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sonoma is one of those tracks that always produces the very, very close racing. You get the drama, the action, the passing. Turn 1 is just nuts when the track gets quite worn as well, because one little mistake on turn in there and you can get passed by 2 or 3 cars. So the order is always changing. The gaps are always fluctuating. When it comes to creating the highlights for this series, Sonoma always features quite heavily for a reason. And I think having that in particular for the season finale is very, very interesting, because it means if the championship does come down to that final round, no one's safe. There is no way you can play a race safe at Sonoma. I
don't know. I might be wrong, but I don't think Mitchell de Jong's ever won at Sonoma in Rallycross. I have to check my 5 million pages of stats that I've got prepared for this season. But he's had a bad run there, and it's not just because of performance. I think it's a lot of there's been a bit of luck in there. I think in 2018 he was at the Sim Expo when the World Championship visited, so he didn't actually race from his own sim, so he struggled there. But yeah, it's definitely a fun circuit to visit for sure. Yohann Harth and Joni Heikkinen were the winners last year. But round 1 begins this weekend at Hell, and round 1 last year was an absolute thrill at Atlanta. It gave us a brand new winner to the series. That was Sami-Matti Trogen, and we're going to check out the first of our 2019 throwbacks in our round 1 highlights. Engines rev, lights illuminate, and we go green for the final time at Atlanta. How about that getaway from Sami-Matti Trogen? De Jong has track position on Yohann Harth. The Frenchman colliding with the American, but it's De Jong into that second position. Harth and Chepolowski, that's a huge pile up behind. Everybody's involved. It's a big one.
And now down the front straightaway, having to keep an eye on what the gap might be. Again, we've been seeing deltas of 8 to 8.5 seconds all day. And right now, Mitchell 8 seconds off Sami-Matti Trogen. So he's thereabouts in the window. And I think if you're Mitchell here, Johnny, you don't want to save this too long, especially if Sammy seems to have the pace advantage, and he's been picture perfect all day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't mind what Mitchell is doing at the moment, but now he's got traffic up ahead. This is Josh Fox, the Williams eSports driver. A touch with the wall for the American. That's going to cost him critical time. Oh, when you talked about it, Randy, he should have gone for the Joker.
Mitchell de Jong, he's now closed back in on that Williams eSports car. He should take the, oh no, and he's not going again. This is a huge mistake by Mitchell. He just lost a second, and Josh Fox again, all sorts of loose, going through that dirt hairpin. We're starting to reel in the halfway point of this feature race already. The gap 9 seconds last time through, and Mitchell, after getting checked up all that time, you would have thought he would have taken the shortcut here.
And he is, and here he is right now taking to the Joker. And where's he going to feed out? Looks like a clean slate of track up ahead, but more importantly, a couple of seconds behind Sami-Matti Trogen. The 17-year-old Finnish Rallycross driver received a wildcard license into the campaign, and he's proving his worth. The rookie, he becomes the youngest ever winner of the 2019 Thrustmaster iRacing Rallycross World Championship. Who's going to win round 1 in 2020 around Hell, a circuit we've never visited before, and we want to know how enjoyable our drivers find these circuits. So we're going to look at what the most enjoyable circuit was. Now, this was a driver's survey that was handed out to all the drivers and some special guest personnel too in between. These are genuine votes. And these are genuine questions that the drivers answered. You're going to see this throughout the preview show, just as we did last year. And it begins with the most enjoyable circuit, which, Bo, do you agree? Atlanta, Long, and Sonoma, those are two of my favorite circuits too when I drive around Rallycross.
Yeah, no, they're very fun circuits. Atlanta has an incredible flow to it. It's got all these corners that link in one to the other. And as you'll hear many times throughout the commentary, the infamous corner, the donk slide, as many call it. It's an incredibly fun corner, leads onto a very long left-hander, long straight, lots of passing opportunities. Atlanta Long is one of those corners it's hard not to enjoy. And then Sonoma, if you want elevation change, just go to Sonoma. It's crazy, it's ridiculous, it's fast. And as we mentioned earlier, plenty of passing as well. So when it comes to those two circuits, I completely agree with them.
You got a least enjoyable circuit, which is a bit weird here when you look at the votes, because Iowa was the third most enjoyable circuit and then is voted the least enjoyable circuit. I don't know. These surveys can be weird sometimes.
Well, I'm assuming Iowa is just a bit of a Vegemite then in that case. Some love it, some hate it. Personally, for me, I quite enjoy it. It's quite a tarmac-based circuit, so it's a little different to some of the other circuits with the fact that it's only got 2 dirt corners, and 2 is being optimistic. It's really just one really long left-hander. So maybe that's why some don't like it. It's not that much of a variety. But in my opinion, it's got one of the best Joker laps. And that is why I think it is a great circuit as well. But Lånkebanen and Hell as well comes in as one of the least liked tracks as well. And I think a lot of that comes down to turn number 4. There's a lot of things you can do at turn 4 that us drivers aren't a huge fan of.
The way I'm looking at this is, it's voted least enjoyable, and I might be wrong, I'm speculating, but it might be least enjoyable because of the bugs on the circuit. Like, there's an invisible wall near the Joker, the gravel's got a lot of grip in places that wouldn't have grip in the real world, and you talked about the turn 4 hairpin, which is, I don't even want to go into that, man. That's going to be like another 15 minutes to talk about, but you can basically cut the corner and gain time without a slowdown. But I mean, as far as I know, if you drive the circuit properly, it's in my opinion, if not the best, one of the best circuits to drive on. So I think that might be a reason why the votes are so high. Very surprised with Sonoma, why a lot of people hate it. I would have thought that would have been by far the driver's favorite, but I don't know. There's got to be something to it. Lucas Oil, I can't remember which circuit won last year, but Lucas Oil was up there last year for least enjoyable, I remember.
Yeah, I believe so. So Lucas Oil, of course, has the very sketchy turn number 1. So it's got the turn 1, which causes a lot of chaos.
The beer bottle. The bottleneck.
It's got a lot of names. I think someone called it the bowling alley, perhaps, as well. It's just a bit of chaos.
No.
That particular.
The bowling alley was the start for Sonoma. Because remember, there was a race last year where someone was missing from the grid, and it made the grid look like a bowling, like 6 bowling pins. And I was like, it looks like I could throw a bowling ball down the start-finish straight here at Sonoma and just take out all these cars. And I was like, you know what? Technically, when a race starts at Sonoma, it is a bowling alley because it's such a tight right-hander. We might actually coin it that. You got the bowling alley, you got the jump, you got the carousel, you got all these different corner names. I'm looking forward to it. The shoot, I think, is after the bowling alley.
Yeah, we've got a few different names for a few different corners there, and it just goes back to what you said before. The best corner names and straight names always come down a spur of the moment and have no real thought behind them, but do have a story behind them. So there we go, a couple of corners there as well that can be added to the list. Yeah,
exactly. Most interesting Joker. I'm not going to say I was surprised by Hell getting 40, not by Hell leading, but to get 40%, I'm very surprised by. I definitely felt Atlanta and Iowa were. Deserve to be in the top 3. That's probably the first one I totally agree with in terms of these top 3 surveys so far. So are you willing to reveal what you voted for? It's anonymous.
It was anonymous, but I'm going to say I voted for Atlanta. I quite like the Atlanta Joker lap, of course. You cut the entire donk slide section and you come out into this really high speed entry back onto the circuit in the middle of a long left hand. I really enjoyed that. It's really fun. You can get some brilliant moments there. I've never particularly had a bad moment there. It's always been exciting. Lånkebanen and Hell at 40%. I'm the same as you. I think that's quite a really high amount. I wasn't expecting anywhere near that amount.
Yeah.
For those that aren't aware, it's a super high speed entry on dirt. So it's a tarmac at the start. And then the second you get into the Joker, it's all dirt, super hard to pull up. And the drivers are really throwing the handbrake really quite sideways there. So in that respect, it's quite fun, but 40% is quite remarkable for me.
Yeah, exactly. So then we switch to least interesting Joker. I think Lucas Oil should be at 100%. So I find this very bizarre that other circuits got votes. But Lucas Oil and Daytona Long. Well, I wrote Daytona there because both layouts have the same Joker. But they were the only real-world circuits, along with Hell now, but they're the only real-world circuits from Red Bull GRC days. In Lucas Oil, in the real world, when you watch the race back, in whatever year they used that layout, they actually had to hit, I don't know what it was, but do you remember this? There was a little marker that they had to slow down for. So it's a little bit different to the sim. But it's still a completely shitty Joker. It doesn't make it any more fun. I think the way they did it in the real world is actually less exciting than what we do in the sim. And that's saying something.
No, absolutely. In the real Red Bull Global Rallycross Championship, what they had was a much tighter entry into the pit lane just about. So the actual entry speed was quite a lot lower. And what that did mean was the exit of the Joker was quite a lot safer. There wasn't as much chaos as we see on iRacing because on our iRacing version of Lucas Oil, we are basically just lifting off in about 5th gear, barely lifting at that, and just firing it in there. And honestly, most of the time, we're just seeing if the car sticks. We don't know if it'll stick. We're just praying for the best at that point. And if contact is made on the exit of the Joker, then that's just the way it goes. It's one of those Jokers. It always causes chaos. There's no real technique or skill to it. It's just, it's a bit of a luck one more than anything.
And that reminds me of back in 2018 when we first had the first race in the World Championship at Lucas Oil. And I remember speaking to a few of the drivers who told me that the Joker Delta time was 2 seconds. And the more and more the seasons go by, I'm like, I don't even think it's half a second, to be honest with you. I don't know what the Joker Delta time is, but someone's got to measure it this season and give me an official figure because it's literally nothing. Sonoma up there for second, by the way. That's the one that needs that little real-life Lucas Oil sort of, hey, we need to go through this blend line to take the Joker. Because if in the sim, you could just brake on the racing line and the guy behind you can rear-end you, just like Jake Robertson did to you today in the test race.
Yeah, I'll avoid comment on Jake there. He gave me quite the shunt at turn 2 in the pre-season race.
You got him back,
I did get him back. I'm not going to be sending an invoice to Apex Racing for the damage because I definitely caused more damage to their door. But yeah, Sonoma's an interesting one, like you said, and it's one of those ones where as a driver, we have to really plan when we take it because, like you said, if you've got a car 3/10 behind you and you commit to the Joker, you are just going to get steamrolled from behind. So you've got to plan your entry a lot more. But I also don't find it that much of an interesting Joker, and I'll stick my hand up for this one as well. I actually voted for Sonoma as the least interesting Joker. It's just not got much character to it. Of course, you're just straight lining a corner near enough, and you're skipping the jump, which is always one of the highlights of the lap as well. And it doesn't really lead to much. So I'm not a huge fan of the Sonoma Joker. The entry's not great, and the exit doesn't really do much either. So that's where my vote went.
And ladies and gentlemen, officially, Sonoma Raceway have or will be removing Bo Albert from the Hall of Fame at that circuit. So after those illustrious comments, but we go to best overtaking circuits. Here's your chance to reclaim yourself, Bo. Did you vote Sonoma as one of the best overtaking circuits?
I did. Sonoma did get my vote.
You're in the Hall of Fame.
Believe it's almost like this was planned. No,
yep.
So Sonoma is a very good circuit for overtaking. It's got a very unique line that all the drivers are taking through turns 1 and 2. And because of that, if you get out of the groove even slightly, it's very easy to get a run on the car in front of you. And because of that, there's lots of ways to make a pass happen, especially into the uphill turn number 3. That's a fun one. And in the tarmac section at the end of the lap as well, you can do some really fun crossovers. Myself and Tommy Mäkinen in the pro qualifying series, we went 2 wide for about half a lap there. And it's super easy to do, super clean, all the room in the world. It's just a great track for battling.
Not 4-time world rally champion Tommy Mäkinen, just somebody who shares the same name. I spoke to Paul Smith about this when we did our rehearsal broadcast, but it has to be the best and worst name to have in the world of Rallycross, because I mean, you know, people are going to think you're as good as a 4-time world champion in a different form of rally. And then also, he's not related to him. He's just going to get that question every time. People are going to make that mistake.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong, but I'm sure we'll get into all the driver profiles very, very soon.
Yes.
But for those that don't know Tommy, a very, very competitive driver, and he is a namesake of the WRC champion, but he definitely lives up to the name very, very quick, and he should be in for a great season.
We look at the worst overtaking circuit. Not much really to say about this. Daytona Short would have been up there, I think, had it been on the calendar. But Hell is, in my opinion, the worst overtaking circuit. But the thing is, after watching that race today, I was just thinking, like, with the way the track state changes, Bo, and how you could see your Subarus qualify ahead and start the races ahead, and as soon as we head to the feature, we could see those VWs and Fiestas start to pull off some great overtakes. So I think in a static world, yes, maybe Hell is the most difficult to overtake at, but in a non-static dynamic track world, it's pretty fun to watch racing around there.
Yeah, it definitely can be. I think maybe one of the reasons it's been voted as one of the worst overtaking circuits is purely because it's hard to do a clean overtake there. If you're going to pass a car at Lånkebanen and Hell, you're more than likely to be banging doors and ripping mirrors off of one another's cars. And, you know, that's Rallycross. You know, we are able to get the bumpers out. This isn't, you know, Formula One open wheel racing where we have to protect the tires. Bono, my tires are gone. You know, we can beat doors around and stuff, and that's all well and good. But Hell is an extreme example of that. And to make any kind of pass happen there, the drivers really have to get their elbows out. So I reckon that's why that's been voted. But absolutely, when the track wears in, you've got more than one opportunity around the circuit to make a pass happen. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really looking. I mean, we get to go there twice, and I can't wait for round 1, let alone round 5. Time to look at our drivers for the championship. And we begin with our returning drivers from 2019. There are a lot of names on in these 3 columns, but we'll knock off the left-hand side first. The biggest name missing is Joni Heikkinen from that list, who, ironically, Bo, gave up his license for personal reasons, said he hopes to be back in the future, which is good to hear, even by 2021, but gave his license to his brother, Alexei Heikkinen. I don't know if that was planned or not, but coincidence? There you go.
Definitely got the tinfoil hat on there. But no, of course. So it's great to see Alexei make his way into the championship, but obviously not at the expense of Joni, because quite simply, for those looking at the list quite in depth, you'll see there's another pairing as well. We've got John Robertson and Jake Robertson as well. And I would have quite liked to have seen a bit of a family rivalry going on in the season. I think that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, they'll be racing rooms apart from each other in a Rallycross World Championship where the winner wins $10,000. That's actually an amazing story, but we'll see how they all fare. Very intrigued to see a lot of drivers miss out too. There's been some controversy over team orders. Can't be bothered covering that. That's that's a story. That's a whole nother podcast, Bo, along with Turn 4 at Hell. We've got some wild cards, though. Cabot Bigham, Travis Pecoy, Henrik Krogstad, they all race in the real world. Obviously, Cabot Bigham's got some GRC experience. Pecoy's raced in, I think, was it Lights? Or I can't remember. He's racing ARX, definitely, with Steve Arpin last year. And Henrik Krogstad, who Timmy Hansen just said had one of the best ever rounds in RX2 to begin a 2020 campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Henrik Krogstad, very, very accomplished, a part of the that whole campaign with the Hansen brothers as well. And
Yellow
definitely
Squad,
doing very well. Yep, Yellow Squad. So doing very well indeed. So I look forward to see how he gets on in the series. And of course, he was in the preseason event we did this morning. And for a wild card, he's got all the hallmarks of a very competitive driver. Of course, last year's champion was a wild card, and I think Henrik, if he can keep that pace up, maybe, just maybe, he can be a contender to live up to that name that Sami-Matti Trogen sort of made last year for the wildcards, being very competitive.
Yeah, 100%. He made the feature in the, I mean, not all the drivers were there, but there were some big names that missed out on that feature, which I won't name just to save them from some embarrassment. There's a few other names I see there. There's some guys from Dirt Rally or whatever the fuck that series is called, but you got Keelan Del Olmo, Jonathan Paillet. Jonathan actually races in the real world too. Bo Albert, he'll be all right, I reckon. One thing we should mention, Bo, as well, is we've got a drivers list here, but we don't have an official teams list. But one thing that's new for this campaign in 2020 is that the real world teams are getting involved. And that means you've been in negotiations with, I don't know how many, was there 13, 14 different real world teams trying to sort out a seat for yourself. How tough have negotiations been for yourself? Some drivers haven't even actually sorted out their team with a week leading up to the season. It's been chaotic.
It's been a very busy couple of weeks. Of course, it was only after the pro qualifying season that this whole deal was announced that we'd have to be joining a real world team. And it's not just real world teams. We've also got some eSports teams as well involved in there. But it is a very different process. It's a different way the World Championship's going to play out this season, in particular with the teams and everything. But I think it's going to be for the benefit of the sport. We're going to have some great exposure for the series, some recognizable brands. So people who's perhaps not from a sim racing background can jump in, and rather than just being like, who is this driver? Who is this team? You know, if they see, for example, an Andretti Autosport car, they immediately get that recognition. They understand who it is, and can perhaps even enjoy a fan base there with that driver as well. So I think for the series going forward, it's a great thing. Negotiations have been tricky. Of course, two different worlds trying to clash into one sort of project has been difficult, trying to get esports and the real world together.
Yeah.
I'm one of those drivers still trying to sort out a couple of things. I'm down to two teams, just trying to work out how we can benefit both myself and my sim racing team, Altus Esports, the best.
Get your sponsors on board, right? That's the main aim, to try and get not only your sponsors, but that's the team that's gotten you to where you are pretty much. You've been with Altus for 2 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure we can get Altus represented. And that is a very tricky thing to do. If we're running under a Nitro Circus car, for example. So of course, Nitro Circus would want Nitro Circus presented, or as the primary sponsor on the car rather than Altus. So there's a lot of back and forth. It's a long process, but I think in the long run, it'll be worthwhile.
Now, here's the thing about this rookie class, Bo. Obviously, you're probably biased, and you're going to say it's a great class. I'll be honest, I was initially skeptical on this class because, for these reasons, everyone's going to look good in the Pro Series. Like last year, everyone hyped up that class, and no offense to John Robertson. John Robertson's a great driver, finished top 10 in the standings. We know he's a top 10 driver. But there were a lot of people tipping him for the championship and some other stuff. And I'm like, I think you're forgetting about guys like Mitchell de Jong. Do we think Mitchell de Jong's just not going to win anything? And so when I looked at this class, I was going, I was a bit skeptical at first, but the more I study into them and the more I look at their pace in comparison to the top guys, I go, man, this class is really quick, man. It's a wicked rookie class. It might be better than last year's overall.
Well, potentially. I think there is definitely some drivers in there that can provide a couple of surprises. One driver I know we'll talk about a little bit in this previous show is Yohann Harth. And he was incredible in the pro qualifying season. He was challenged at the start of the season by the likes of Garrett Maines, who, of course, returns to the season, and Vicente Salas, of course, who does quite a lot of NASCAR himself as well. So he's running 2 different campaigns at the same time, along with Garrett. But Yohann was just a standout force. It didn't matter what car he drove, if it was a Ford, Subaru, or Volkswagen, he could get the most out of it. He was at the front. And, if there was any doubt about how competitive he was in the preseason race earlier this morning, put it on pole, ran away in his heat, ran away with the feature. I mean, heading into round 1, I don't know how much more confidence he could be riding right now. He's just on a wave of it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very impressed by him the more I look into him. The issue I had was, I think, like I said, it's just tough to gauge. When people watch the Pro Series a lot, they're going to think those drivers are the best. For example, last year, like Yohann Harth, despite already having a license, dominated the Pro Series. He was hyped up. All the drivers knew him. And he was getting all these different votes, all these different stuffs. And there's no question that Yohann Harth is proved himself to be one of the top drivers last year. Won a couple of races, however many he won. I can't remember. Had a lot of poles. Had the most poles out of all drivers. But I think what people got to remember is that there are 10 drivers that didn't need to go through the Pro Series to get a license. So that's what people are forgetting. So it's a question. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. You know what I'm trying to do here? Because I look at it and I go, hey, if Garrett Maines was the second best driver in the Pro Series, where he finished in the standings, because obviously he finished ahead of Vicente Salas, I can't wait to see if Garrett Maines, if that's a legitimate improvement, or if it's just something that he's showing in the standings. Based on Yohann Harth's pace, it looks like Garrett Maines could be like on the podium every race this year. Who knows?
I definitely get your point. It's a hard thing to judge, especially when we haven't got into the season yet, to judge just how these rookies are going to fit in, where they might fit in. But I definitely do think we're going to see some very competitive rookies. Like I mentioned, Yohann, I think he'll be very good. And in regards to Garrett, he himself has said that last year probably wasn't his best. He was learning a lot of lessons in the pro qualifying series. I've raced Garrett for a while. I raced him before last year's pro qualifying season. And he's definitely taking up another gear. I think he's super competitive. And whether or not he's fighting for podiums every round, I'm not too sure, because, of course, it is a very strong field. And I think the order's going to be quite mixed from round to round. But I think Garrett could be one to definitely watch out. And I'm going to say if he's not in the top 6 or so come the end of the season, I'll be quite surprised.
In the standings?
Yes.
Oh, goodness me. You've packed...
I'm locking that in.
I spoke to a driver yesterday, and we were discussing who we thought was most improved, who we thought was going to struggle this year. And then we came to a conclusion, and we said, okay, we've got Sami-Matti Trogen, Mitchell de Jong, right? Bobby Zalenski is one of the best drivers in Rallycross, one of the best drivers in the world in sim racing. Otto Taskinen, feature race winner. Yohann Harth, who on the right day can be the best driver on the grid if he handles himself mentally. Josh Fox, Garrett Lowe, John Robertson. Maybe take Garrett Lowe out there. He's consistent, but maybe John Robertson's got him pace-wise. Tommy Horman, who people have said he's shown improvement to the point where he could win the championship maybe. Yohann Harth. So now I've just named about 9 or 10 different drivers there, right, Bo? Where I think at least 6 or 7 of these guys are going to be disappointed come round 1 to not win the event. Is that true?
Yeah, potentially. No, I definitely do believe that is true. Of course, all of these drivers are capable, and to get to this level, especially those guys who have proven themselves over a couple of seasons now, you don't go into these races, especially round 1 of the season. Round 1 has more pressure on it than perhaps any other, because that is sort of what sets the tone for the rest of the season. And a lot of them, they're not going into the race going, oh, geez, I really hope I come 3rd today. That's just not how these guys are wired. They want to go for that win. And if they don't get that win, they will be a little disheartened. And that's why I think a lot of them, Just need to make sure they're taking it race by race to try and build a championship rather than just going for race wins. But absolutely, I mean, when you have these 8, 9, 10 drivers that are all capable of the wins, that's just, you can't fit 10 drivers into first place. You can't do it. So someone's got to lose out.
No, well, 100%. So when we look now at the driver survey for the drivers this time, we got them to vote on the following questions. We began with asking them who they thought was going to be the 2020 champion. And this is a tough one again. There are the votes on screen, but in my opinion, for Mitchell de Jong to get 40% sort of sums up my point. Is like, do we really think the same guy who missed 2 races last year and would have won the championship with this new point system is going to have a 40%, like 40% of drivers think he's going to win it? I think that should be up to like 80, 90. And it's not to be a kiss ass to Mitchell, but he is the benchmark to beat.
Absolutely. And, you know, even for me, I've been working with a group of drivers going into this series, and it's never been, oh, I hope you can win the championship. It's always been, I hope you can beat Mitchell. You know, Mitchell is the guy you want to beat. He's the driver on track when, you know, you're not on track and you're just watching everyone else. He's the driver you spectate. What lap times is he running? What line? What gear? He's the driver everybody references, and there's a reason for that. He's the benchmark. He doesn't make many mistakes. When he does, he recovers from them quick and makes the most of a bad situation. His bad days are far and few between. He's consistent, fastest laps, race wins. He knows how to handle pressures, and he knows how to win championships as well. So, end of the day, Mitchell is by far in the strongest position to win the championship. But at the same time in this series, apart from maybe Yohann Harth in season 1, we haven't seen anybody challenge Mitchell round in, round out to put pressure on him. And I just wonder if anyone, of course, we look at second place in the rankings for the 2020 champion, 20% goes to Yohann Harth. If someone like Yohann can get under Mitchell's skin in the first 1, 2, 3 rounds and put Mitchell on the back foot, how does Mitchell cope with that? He hasn't been in that situation since 2018.
Yeah, see, that's a good point there. And again, like the Joni Ollikainen votes, I think John Robertson was up here last year. And like I said, the Pro Series always makes you look heaps better than you actually are. So I think if you're going to put money on this series, which I don't know if there is a betting market out there, it might be worth putting some money on Joni if the odds are good. But I just want to see first 3 rounds from Joni Ollikainen, and when I see those first 3 rounds from him against World Championship talent, then we'll gauge, you know, where he is in the pecking order. He could be the best. He could be maybe, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th or something like that. So who the hell knows? But one driver who was our 29 champion was Sami-Matti Trogen, only received 3.3% of votes in this survey, as you can see. We're going to speak to him right now and see what he thinks about all this and his 2019 championship. Sami-Matti Trogen, welcome back. It's a delight to have you after, I don't want to say shocking championship win, but something that a lot of people didn't expect. And it's a bit disrespectful too, because you had by far the strongest pace apart from Mitchell that season. So I think you rightly deserve that championship despite him missing 2 races.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit surprise for me also winning the first round and having really good speed. Yeah, I mean, it was a really good season last year, and hopefully this year will be also good. So let's see.
And look at you now. You're in new colors. I can't believe it. From Set to Williams. Now Williams are looking to... And what a team as well. You're with Josh Fox this year, who ran on his own last year for Williams. How's it been testing with Josh so far in the preseason?
Yeah, I did a bit, and also we drove quite much in the when I had this iRacing Rallycross All-Star. He was spotting me also there, and yeah, it's Josh is also really fast, so I think we have a strong team for this year also.
But how's the testing going for you guys? Because the concern I have is there are a lot of guys who will test their ass off, let's say last year, and then you've now got a championship under your belt. You've got a little bit less pressure. Now you're going into this season. Have you put in more work than last year? Is it the same amount of work? Because that's a real good, to me, it's a good gauge of how strong you'll be. Look at Yohann Harth, for example, who put in, and he admits it, put in a little less testing last year, and his pace dropped off compared to 2018.
Yeah, it's true, but I have driven almost as much as last year, maybe a bit more. So yeah, I felt that it's not that little bit different in the setup what it was last year, but quite the same. So yeah, I mean now we have Hell and new track, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit different what we have last year. We have slower choker there, and overall it's different than American track. So yeah, look.
Did you celebrate last year when you found out that Mitchell was going to miss rounds 3 and 4 and you were going to have like a complete 1-round lead at one stage?
Yeah, well, not really, but of course it helped a lot. Didn't have that much pressure anymore in the last rounds. Just I knew that I need to be just like performing okay in the races, not need to be. But I was in the top 3 also in the last races, so it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you had one of the most impressive seasons in a World Championship. It was so consistent, despite only winning one race. It was like Keke Rosberg in 1982 when he won the F1 Championship. But it was, I think, very underrated in a sense with the consistency, like appearing in every feature, claiming as much points as possible. And even when you had a bad day, you still made it to the feature. I remember there was one round at Sonoma, you just were in so much contact, you couldn't avoid trouble, and you still managed to somehow, I think you even finished 10th, but it was like you still had 40 points for making the feature.
Yeah, that was the thing, making the feature race in every race, and I think this year it will be a bit different when you have last year when you was able to get into feature, you get so much points more. This year I think it will be a bit closer. I mean the points, you don't get that much points more if you win, or so I think it will be a bit tighter, but it's good, I think.
And you know what? I was very impressed with those. I mean, how cool were those skateboards that you won for the for the All Stars Invitational? Those are some of the coolest things I've ever seen. I think you won 4 of them out of 6 for pole position.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
People should be getting. I mean, Mitchell should be scared. Then he got beaten 4 times in qualifying. He should come into this season thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna bloody win 2 championships in a row."
Yeah, I mean, Beetle was really strong in first 2 races. I was a bit struggling there, but in the end, I was 4 poles in a row, and I think it's good. It's good.
What some people should realize who might not know is you obviously race in the FIA World Rallycross Championship, or at least in RX2 last year. But what are your plans for 2020? What are you getting up to this year in terms of racing? Because it's been the weirdest year, I think, everyone's experienced, at least in our lifetime. You and I, we're quite young, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really strange. I mean, I did quite much testing last year in secret racing, and also I've been in the secret racing also like 3 years now, and this year in the start of the year I did some more testing, and now I've been driving in Nürburgring Endurance Championship in the summer, and I most of the races I will be racing in secret racing, and I will be focusing there in the next 3 years at least. So I have a 2-year contract with one of the teams, so I will be driving there.
I was going to say, considering you've got real world racing experience, you're a great guy to ask how difficult it is to race on the sim, because in my opinion, I always think it's tougher to race wheel to wheel on iRacing or any simulator, because you have to deal with stuff like lag, for example. Even if you live in like Finland and Norway, there's still going to be lag, if you're that close to each other. And you also have to deal with stuff like it's harder to see in the cockpit, like compared to the real world. I don't know. Do you feel like it's harder as well?
Yeah, I mean it's different. So you can in the real world you can like race much more closer. But in iRacing, for example, you have this lag, and as you said, so it's different. But I think in like I'm racing in Nordschleife mostly now, I think it helped me a lot to have driven like 1,000 lap in the iRacing in Nordschleife. I know the track really well, so that's the thing where I think it helped the most. So.
Brilliant to have Sami-Matti Trogen, our 2019 champion, as our first guest of the evening. And Bo, have you ever seen that Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson's on rock bottom? The sexual harassment episode?
I actually think I have. Yes, I have.
Because I did all these interviews, and we're recording today on all these separate days. So all the interviews that are on the previous show, like, I think you can tell that my beard changes on each day, like the stubble. I have a heavier beard in some. I'm clean shaven in another, and I look like that scene in The Simpsons where the clock changes behind Homer Simpson. But anyway, if you notice that, have fun with it.
Anyone that hasn't noticed that up until now is now just rewinding through the broadcast. Just, okay, where is he here? Where is this day? Just trying to sort out where your beard progression is.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, there you go. I'm wearing different clothes too, which should be obvious. But anyway, time to look at our feature race winner survey results. And we begin with Mitchell de Jong, 86.7%. And even Yohann at 66%. Isn't Mitchell 100% guaranteed to win it? And I think Yohann is at least... Sami-Matti, I think 75 is a good percentage. He only won one race last year. But for Yohann to have 66, I reckon Yohann should be in the 90s.
Well, I definitely think Yohann should be in the 90s as well, especially with 2 rounds at Sonoma. Of course, that's his best circuit by far. So big things expected from the Frenchman this year. Yeah, Mitchell should definitely be at 100%. He is the benchmark. He should be able to get a race win fairly easily. But there's quite a few others as well who have scored some decent amounts. Of course, some are rating Yohann Harth at 30% and Lauri Lamansivu as well for Vendavel's Sim Sports as well to get some results as well. So they're 2 drivers from pro qualifying as well, who once again, we don't know how they're going to stack up in the World Championship field, but people have high hopes for them, clearly.
Yeah, I really like Lamansivu too. I think he's going to have a pretty good campaign. I think 30% win percentage for a feature is a bit tough. Let's see if he can prove it. Ollikainen, I think, is up there. A surprise not to see. I think looking at the results, I remember Bobby Zalenski was very close to Josh Fox. So he was right there. Same with John Robertson. So I'm a bit surprised the drivers don't have too much belief they'll win a feature either. But the main thing is, Bo, we have 9 races, right? And the way I see this is, okay, there'll be potentially 4 or 5 de Jong wins. Potentially 1 or 2 Yohann Harth wins, maybe 1 Sami-Matti Trogen win in there. That pretty much equals 8 rounds. So if you have one other winner and you can split it between, it could be Tommy Horman, Josh Fox, Zalenski, Ollikainen, who did I also say? John Robertson, Taskinen, we're forgetting Otto Taskinen, Garrett Lowe, potentially, you yourself. It's a bit tough, to figure this out, because if one driver dominates like de Jong or Yohann Harth, there's only so many wins that you can allocate.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of actually like that, though. I kind of like the fact we've got less rounds this year, down to 9. And the race wins are almost more prestigious. And to score one of them sort of means more rather than having, let's say, a 30-round championship and getting a race win in that. I
wouldn't complain about that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if we're up for that next season, sign me up. But no,
100%.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be interesting to see which drivers can squeeze in a race win. Because again, yes, drivers can dominate in Rallycross. Get a good launch, great opening lap, away you go. But there's also so much unpredictability, and we have seen carnage at turn 1 happen before. So I think we can still get some surprise results here or there. And that's one thing I love about Rallycross is, yes, we have 10 cars on the grid, and in a road racing situation, 10 cars is a long distance between the cars heading towards turn number 1. In Rallycross, we're all bunched together, and quite literally any one of the 10 cars can leave turn 1 in the race lead, no matter where they start. So shock race wins are definitely still on the cards. Who that's going to be, I'm not quite sure, but anyone that expects Mitchell de Jong to just clean sweep the season, or Yohann Harth to, help provide quite a lot of race wins to his tally as well, I think they'll be in for a shock. I think we'll get a couple of shock winners this year.
We could see 5 or 6 wide at Hell. I think I've seen 6 wide at Hell, at least in the real world. I might be wrong with that, but I would not be surprised if we saw that in the sim. Even Daytona Long gives us some 3-4 wide starts sometimes heading into the hairpin, but that never ends well, and neither does it at Hell. The difference is at Hell you've got the Joker to escape to if you don't like it, whereas Daytona you have to commit to the outside. So bit of different characteristics there. And we spoke about wildcards. And I wouldn't call this driver a wildcard winner last year, but he was a surprise race winner. That was Otto Taskinen at round 4 for Lucas Oil. It was a thrilling round. Not only did it include Positive Sim Racing's first ever World Championship victory, but it included a lot of drama in between. So let's revisit that 2019 round. Only your top 2 head to the feature race. They get basically a free pass. If you've ever seen The Amazing Race, Randy, it's like getting the fast forward. What was it called? I can't remember.
Well, you're the one talking about the show, so I don't. I remember watching it, but not too in depth, as Yohann was all over the back of Zalenski there as they worked on towards the pit lane, and now through this long right-hander on the what is technically the entrance to pit road. Of course, we're running it backwards here, and into the hairpin, and Zalenski makes a mistake. Yohann nearly gets hooked, and Bobby's going to go back to the lead because of it.
And this is important for grid position. Don't forget, heading to the feature race. Alongside each other are the Frenchman and the American. And now it looks like the Frenchman concedes. Yohann Harth. No, he's going to barge his way past into turn 1. A brilliant move by our championship leader. Green tick signifying that they have done so. And they've done so legally. And it looks like Zalenski. Well, I've never seen a pass into the jump here. Oh, and he's made contact with Harth. What's happened here? He's taken out Harth completely. Harth comes back into Clampett, and that's going to give Taskinen the lead. This is crazy.
What in the world did we just see? Otto Taskinen is going to get a freebie. Now the question is, the race is on for second, and it looks like it's Logan Clampett fighting with Matthew Madigan trying to sort it out.
Lights illuminate for the second heat. And we go green yet again from Lucas Oil Raceway. And the ART car didn't get off the line at all. That was John Robertson. How about Tommy Horman using the banking to perfection here? Gaining all the speed in the world, but the Williams eSports driver of Fox will take to the Joker and most likely take the lead.
We'll see what happens here. Fox up the inside, and Hallman is going to settle in a second. We got a car on the wall in the background. Who climbs the wall? Couldn't see who that was, but Fox is around. 2 heats in a row. The leader gets taken out.
Look at Heikkinen versus Trogen. Now, don't forget, I don't think Trogen, he hasn't. Look at the top of the screen. He hasn't taken the Joker, and he's going to do it this time by. Let's see if he snatches the lead from his teammate. Whoa, that was insane. I'm not sure if he pulled the handbrake there, Randy, but looked like he did. For these guys right now in these final few laps right now. Oh, and there's a Positive Sim Racing car into the wall. That's Daniel Matrani potentially handing the final podium position to the Finn of Joni Heikkinen. They're going to be alongside each other here to begin the penultimate lap. And it looks like Heikkinen should seal 3rd position.
Taskinen will see it. He's already in towards 1 and 2. Logan Clamp is going to see it now. These drivers are side by side. It's a big shove from Sami-Matti Trogen as they head towards, and Sammy's going to take the Joker on the final lap.
Yep, Trogen through to the Joker. Now let's see if he claims 4th position. He does. That demotes Daniel Matrani to 5th, but it doesn't matter for Positive Sim Racing because this 25-year-old Finnish driver of Otto Taskinen. Now, I drove for Positive Sim Racing in 2014, and I have to say, I can't contain my excitement. It's great to see the team and Javier Alvarez, team owner. They'll celebrate this for years to come. Otto Taskinen wins round 4 from Lucas Oil Raceway.
And P4, they're the pileup. There were 4 wide off the hairpin, and I think it's going to be Bobby Zalenski, who on the final lap goes from 7th to 4th after everyone in front of him gets into each other.
So now looking at who the drivers voted as the best qualifier, and it goes to Mitchell de Jong this year by the slightest of margins. This is actually an award that was won by Yohann Harth last year. But Bo, I think interpretation is important with this because this is different to, in my opinion, to quickest driver. The way I see this is who is the best in terms of qualifying pace versus race pace difference. Does that make sense to you?
To a degree, yeah, I think so. But it's also an ability to deliver under pressure as well, because of course in Rallycross we only get 3 laps, not much time at all to perform, and this is also a bit of that as well, as who can really handle the pressure when it matters. And Mitchell de Jong, Yohann Harth, both have had a number of pole positions across their time. I believe Johann's actually had more qualifying pole positions than he's actually had race wins. So perhaps the strength of his, and maybe he has to focus more on the race pace side of things. But then we've got Sami-Matti Trogen in there as well. And that's a little bit of a surprise to me, because I didn't feel like he was perhaps right at the front where he maybe deserved to be in last year's qualifying. And I actually thought that was perhaps a weakness of his. I thought a strength of his was his ability to move forward in the races rather than his qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. I totally agree with what you're saying, because I mean, that's where I probably have to describe this a little bit clearer in the survey, because again, like I say, like Mitchell is obviously the quickest driver in Rallycross. He's proven that, but I think Johann's a better qualifier in terms of the difference in skill, just raw speed. And the best Formula One example I can come up with is like back when Jarno Trulli or Mark Webber would just blitz it on a Saturday, but it would just never go right for them in the race.
Yeah.
That's what I consider a qualifying specialist. Whereas you look at Fernando Alonso, who's never been a real strong qualifier, but if you talk about best race pace, he'd be up there. The dude was insane. Like, he set his car up for the race, and he was so quick over a race distance. So, end of the day, we got 3 bloody quick drivers up there, which I'm happy about for this. Garrett Main's got a vote. You know Garrett well. Would you agree with him getting a vote there?
Yeah, I do. I believe he is an extremely good qualifier. Of course, he got a couple of pole positions in the pro qualifying series. Whether or not he can get poles in the World Championship Series, I'm on the fence a little bit. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Garrett. We've had some great battles, but I think that'll be a bit of a stretch. He'll be up there. He'll be top 5s and top 10s for sure. But if he gets a pole or 2 in the season, then that's an absolutely bloody good effort from him.
And it's time to speak to Yohann Harth, who's our next guest. He was the best qualifier, voted at least by his peers, and he came second this year, but let's see how he feels about 2020 as a season as a whole. Welcome, Yohann Harth. It's 2020, you're back, and I'm assuming more improved than ever. You've got Porsche eSports Super Cup experience, and you're quicker than usual. You haven't put in as much dirt road experience as you did last year, but I really feel like this year you're going to take a step up. I don't know. I seem to have a good feeling about you.
You tell me. I don't know. Yeah, I stepped out a bit from RX this past year. I think I haven't done any lap in like 6 months after the Win Championship ended. So yeah, I don't know if I'm back up to speed.
Well, I mean, last year, Mitchell didn't, or at least he alleges, he didn't test until about a week or 2 weeks before the World Championship began. And that's why you can see in round 1, his pace was lacking. And then he found his pace after a couple of weeks. I think with all your PESC experience, I mean, yes, it's on tarmac, it's not on dirt road. But I think if you start off the season slow in round 1, there's no reason why you can't be at your best in round 2.
Yeah, PESC. I think PESC is going to help a lot, especially in terms of dealing with pressure and stressful situations. Because PESC is a lot of stress compared to RX. You're under pressure all the time.
And I think, you know what, as well, you've barely driven Rallycross since the last World Championship. And I checked all the I rating of all the dirt road drivers, and you're still freaking 1,500 I rating above the next best person. I don't know if it's Garrett Maines. I can't remember who second place is, but you're literally killing him. It's insane. And you haven't even driven in ages.
I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know what they're doing. I don't think it's Garrett still. I don't know if he's lost I rating or if he's gained some in the Pro Series, but...
And now you haven't seen this, actually. We looked at the new point system for 2020 with the lower points for feature races, and we recalculated all the points from last season and 2018. Now, the top 10 in 2018 doesn't change in the championship, so you remain where you are. I think you finished 5th. But last year, you jumped 3 spots in the standings, and I guess it's
just because of qualifying. I had a look. We managed to have a look at the new point system, and yeah, qualifying is going to be a huge part. It was already, because pretty short races, so you need to be up front. But yeah, with all the points now, that's definitely a huge part of your weekend.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it does. Even if the incidents last year, like whether or not they were your fault or not, is not what I care about. I think what I care about this season, like what I want to see from you, I'm talking to you like I'm your dad, by the way, but I don't mean to do that. But is, let's say you get in an incident in, I don't know, let's say the heat, and you drop down to last, and there's 5 laps to go, and you've got the slimmest of chances to making up positions or even advancing. I reckon just keep driving, man, and just keep that mental game up there. You know, I think that's the thing that obviously cost you last year, was the incidents kept you out of feature races, but it was sort of just getting frustrated with how much bad luck you had, and how many of that kind of stuff was involved. I don't know if you agree with me on all of that, but that's what I feel like.
I do. I really do. I really agree with you. Yeah, I think Porsche is gonna help me with that, because I don't know if you've seen how my season went this year in the Porsche eSports Super Cup. The first few rounds were a nightmare, and if I had the same mentality than last year, I would have given up, basically. I was almost dead last after 3 rounds. I had only 2 people behind me. I had only 1 point, and I kept going, and now I'm back in the top 20, so yeah.
Now, this is one of my favorite questions in the survey, and it's, who is going to have a breakout year in 2020? There's only a select few names you can pick here. It can't be a rookie, obviously. It can't be anyone. It's a bit subjective by me. I actually pick who I think, well, ironically, actually, it is objective. I pick who I think has potentially got a chance to have a breakout year. And Tommy Horman was voted number 1 on that list. Now, the way this works is, like Yohann last year, I think topped this. But for a guy like Yohann or Zalenski, in my opinion, for them to have a breakout year, it's got to be a championship, right? It can't be like, hey, I'm Bobby Zalenski, I won 2 races, that's my breakout year. I think for those 2 guys, they've already proven their worth. Even Josh Fox, I think if it's a breakout year, it's got to be a championship.
Yeah, exactly. A breakout year is basically going above and beyond, you know, doing so much better, or at least a very solid improvement on their previous year. And like you said, those guys have won races before. They've done extremely well. So it's a bit hard for them to, you know, win a couple of races and call that a breakout year. So I agree with you there. But I also agree with the survey's statement that Tommy Horman could be one of the drivers to watch. An interesting thing I found out was that he had never won a strength of field race in the pro qualifying season when he actually qualified for the World Championship. But he did a couple of races during this year's pro qualifying series. Of course, he retained his license, so he didn't need to. But he keep himself up to speed, do a couple of races, keep himself warmed up. He was racing, and he did put the car on pole a number of times, including at Phoenix, which was very impressive because he was not in the quote-unquote strongest car for that week. But then he also got a race win in the strength of field as well. So he's proving that, you know, if anyone's able to take it up another level compared to their previous season, he's a driver that can do it. And again, we spoke about Garrett Maines earlier. I think he's better prepared than he was last season as well. So I definitely expect better results from him this year than perhaps he may have got last year.
Yeah, see, the floor, or how low you put the floor for these drivers, helps you win this aspect of the survey. For example, Tommy Horman, 10th last year. I think it was 1 podium in the opening round. That's all he scored, was P3. And that was a chaotic opening round. Like, if that's a clean race, he's at best maybe even 6th, 7th. Who knows? He just managed to break free of the big one like they have at Talladega. That was a massive crash. That was, you know, in hindsight and taking emotion out of it, quite fun to watch. But that's why I feel Tommy Horman's got a great, you know, a low floor here. He can achieve a lot. There's potential, and they've been talking themselves up, saying, hey, the set guys, like, hey, Tommy and Yanni, they look really good. Like, they're contending for the championship this year. So I guess there's a bit of hype there. That helped with, and sometimes these surveys are accurate. Like last year with Sami-Matti Trogen gaining a lot of weird votes as a wild card, we weren't sure where his pace was. He ended up winning the championship. Who knows if this Tommy Horman thing is true. I think the floor is probably lower out of these top 3 for Garrett Maines. I think with the way he performed in the World Championship last year, coming in second in the Pro Series, he's got the least amount of pressure to have a breakout year. And I think for John Robertson, if he just wins one race, I think to me that he qualifies as potentially most improved. If he can win 1 or 2 races at most, that's a stellar year for John Robertson.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course, he was very, very quick last season, had some great results. Perhaps on the horizon for him that never quite came into fruition. And I think it could be a big year for him if he can hook it all up. And he's been keeping very active. He's been making sure he's stayed up to speed with all the rallycross throughout. He didn't do any of the pro qualifying races as such to stay up to speed, but he was always in the practice sessions. He was always on track, always running laps, and keeping his eye on things as well. So very race smart driver. He's going to be well prepared as well. So I think for John, definitely 1 or 2 race wins for the season would be a great effort. He's got a lot of work to do, but he's got a great team around him as well. And hopefully he can get a good result for himself.
And the thing with John, too, is he's finishing high school up this year. So he's got a lot of studies on his plate. He wants to enter PESC. So who knows if he's going to be in pro qualifiers for that, too, to enter Porsche Super Cup, whatever the fuck it's called, in 2021. To me, I thought that would hamper his pace. My best sim racing year was my first year out of high school in 2014. And that was obviously because, you're not restricted to showing up somewhere. You're studying at university. You can party, do whatever the hell you want, hang out with friends, enjoy your life, still study. I think I already said that. Still study, do all that, still work, and still have time for sim racing. So if John Robertson doesn't have a breakthrough year this year, I think that little bet I had last year where he was, if you put money on him to be champion before, what was it, 2022 or 2021, would he do it? I think the money's still on for that, because who knows next year with all the extra time up his sleeve, whether or not he actually makes that step up.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting call because, of course, like you mentioned, having all those other commitments that are going on does distract from you a little bit. And whilst I don't believe the Porsche Esports Super Cup pro qualifiers will actually interfere with the Rallycross series at all, it shouldn't clash as far as I know. I believe that's going to be in season 1, 2021. But you can't go into the Porsche qualifiers completely unprepared. So at some point in the World Championship Series, in the background, he's going to have to start working on his Porsche pace. And if you're working on how fast you are in a Porsche, that doesn't translate to a Subaru or a Volkswagen in a dirt track. So eventually there will come a compromise for John, and it's up to him how he handles that, and also how he balances time with school and everything.
Yeah, 100%. So something to manage for John Robertson. Another driver who's having a stellar season is Bobby Zalenski. He's our next guest. He's currently leading the eNASCAR point standings. Of course, that all resets come playoff time, but for him, who knows how his season's going to fare. It's going to be a tough one as he's got to manage his current NASCAR commitments, potentially a championship for him. He's got the Porsche Esports Super Cup, the final couple of rounds. He's got this. What can't this American do? Let's find out. Bobby Zalenski, welcome. eNASCAR points leader. I don't know how you feel about that.
It's honestly not that big of a deal because it all gets reset in the playoff anyway. So.
Yeah, well, that's it. And with the playoffs coming up, I mean, that could hamper you come Rallycross the first few rounds. We saw that with Josh Fox last year when he was finishing up Dirt Oval, and he ended up becoming a lot quicker through the end of Dirt Road in Rallycross, and maybe that could be the same for you this season.
It kind of happened last year in the first few rounds where I had to do a race before the Homestead finale and then a race right after it, and I was just pooped. Like, I didn't feel like racing at all. So, like, the first 3 rounds, really was the second and third rounds, I DNQ'd, and mostly it was because I was just pooped. And this year, yeah, it's pretty much the same, except there's even more racing going on. The playoffs in NASCAR, 4 straight weeks, basically, back to back. So it's going to be tough, but, you get experience in Rallycross year after year now, and I don't think I need as much time to test these tracks other than Hell. Because I know them. And, 100% focus going to be on NASCAR, but if I can, win one of the first couple races in the playoffs, I don't got to worry about the other playoff races. I can just, worry about the final race, and then I can do more rally.
Do you think, what's the limit for you with World Championships? I feel like if you competed in, I mean, how many are there now? If you competed in like 15 of them, would you even keep the license in at least like 10 of them? Like, it'd be tough.
Well, yeah, I think I'm at the limit right now because Porsche is insane. That's by far the most difficult for me. And yeah, I think the limit is right now, and I'm not right now. I'm not going to keep my Porsche license, so I got to qualify again through Pro, which sucks. But
that's your winter gone, basically, right there.
I don't mind because like I had an off winter the last winter, and I was thinking, I would enjoy it because I race all the time and I love racing, but I actually didn't like it that much at the end of it. I just played a lot of NBA 2K and got bored, so
yeah.
I don't mind having a busy winter really. Well, unless I can win these last 2 Pesk races, who knows? But yeah, I mean, I'm for sure really excited for this rally season too, though.
Remember last year we spoke about you being underrated one race, and all the drivers voted you as underrated, and then now you haven't looked at the survey results yet, but I don't know if you got more than like 1 vote, and I'm like, well, I guess you're properly rated now. That must be a good thing.
Yeah, I can't really be underrated 2 seasons in a row, right? So, I mean, I think it's good. It's good. I got 4th in the championship. It's not really underrated at that point. I think I finished about where I deserved. I was a little bit off Sammy and Mitchell, and hopefully this year we're a bit closer to be able to beat them. But yeah, properly rated's proper.
But that's what I was thinking, for you to have a breakthrough season, and not just you, but for Yohann Harth or even Josh Fox, to classify or to count a breakout season for you guys would have to be a championship, surely. Like, I know you're yet to win a feature, but I think if you, let's say, win 3-4 races and don't win a championship, different story. But if you're, let's say, finishing 3rd in the championship, 1 position higher, you maybe grabbed 1 win, I wouldn't really count that as a breakthrough season. I'd count it as an improvement. But do you know what I mean there? A breakthrough's got to be like someone who goes from 15th to 4th in the standings.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I really only went like, I don't know if I had a breakthrough year last year. It was 3 positions gained, and I got some podiums and stuff, and we're up there. But yeah, I would have to win the title to really have a breakthrough year, and that means I got to get some wins. I mean, Mitchell wins half the damn races, and the good thing is I know where he beats me. So
you spoke about that last year. Remember that you told me how you'd be able to ask Mitchell a question and say, hey, I'm losing 2/10 to you in this corner, and he'd explain to you how, and then all of a sudden you'd match him. I think it's almost the perfect teammate to have, because you're really able to not only find where you're lacking against him, once you start matching him, you can start pushing him and start to try and beat him. So it's probably the best teammate you could have on the grid in a sense.
Yeah, 100%. And he's a really hard worker and a good guy and a good friend, and he's trying to make his way into NASCAR as well. So I might have him as a teammate over there next year if everything goes well. I'm in the Pro Series because he's made it through Road to Pro, and he's hard working on the setup, hard working on driving. Will always help you. And he helped me actually quite a bit this was the first time he's really practiced hard with me for a road course in the NASCAR series for the Daytona road course. Helped a ton because he was able to just find little things of the setup. Maybe he did a corner just a little better than me, and I get all pissed off because I can't accept anybody faster than me and my team at a NASCAR road course, or I just get really mad, and we made fun of that. But
yeah.
So
I think, have you lost
him being there?
Have you lost a road course race yet? In NASCAR?
Thankfully not yet. And it's getting to be kind of annoying because every time you go to the dang race, like everyone just, tells you, oh, you're going to win. And I'm like, because I don't feel like I'm going to win leading up to the race. And I don't, because you're being gunned for. And I don't feel like I'm any special talent or anything. Like there's so many good road racers in that series. So I'm always just pushing really hard for the setup because like, if you can get every inch out of that setup, it might come down to that. And I think that's a big thing of why I've been able to win those is because I know how to adjust on the setup to what I like in the car, and I could just push it right to the limit and just be comfortable there. Yeah, I love Mitchell. He's a great guy.
Are you ever afraid that if you guys have a bust up this season in Rallycross that you're only a few hours apart from each other, he'll come knocking on your door? And, well, I don't know. You're nocturnal, though. You'll be awake 24/7. I know that.
Yeah.
You'll be ready for it.
We'll be fine. I think like the only way we'd have a bust up is it would probably be my fault. It'd probably be us for going for a win, and I'd move him out of the way because I don't think he would move me out of the way. Because that would look kind of bad. Like, oh, you have like 20 wins, you're pushing the guy that has none. But if it's me doing it, it's like, oh man, someone's giving it to Mitchell. So, you know, maybe he'll have to deal with that.
Time to look at our Rookie of the Year survey results. And Joni Ollikainen dominates.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could really disagree with this. You know, Bo, I think it's... I think I want to focus on you more because we've spoken a lot about Joni, but for you to have a few votes up there to be in the top 3, that's some good stuff, man. And I mean, I hope you didn't vote for yourself, but it's people have some good faith in you, which is good.
Yeah, well, hopefully, of course, it's going to be a difficult one. It's my first World Championship I've been in since 2018. So I've got a little bit of World Championship background, but nothing in Rallycross. So it's a totally different ball game. And I didn't really... There's a couple of things I regret about not doing in pro qualifying series to be as prepared as I could be for races. So in many ways, I'm sort of hoping to turn around my form from where I was in pro qualifying, getting top 5s on average, the occasional win or whatever, and trying to turn that into more consistent effort in the World Championship and getting some better results. So, you know, hopefully I can challenge maybe, or at least get kind of close to Yohann Harth for Rookie of the Year. But he's been the dominant force, and he's proven why in a number of races as well.
The way I see this rookie class is, if you handle this like it was like the NBA draft or the NFL or the AFL or whatever, and you had teams had draft picks. If you look at pick 1, and no offense to you, but I would probably pick Joni Ollikainen. But then from pick 2 onwards, you've got, in my opinion, like Vicente Salas is quick. Yourself, you're pretty quick. Lamansiva, all these names you see there, and some more that didn't even get votes. It seems like, in my opinion, pretty even afterwards. I know Mika Happinen, Toni Latimaki, they didn't get their license, but if you included them, it's very even pace between all you guys from like pick 2 onwards. So if you were in a draft and you had like pick 7, you could essentially end up with the second best guy in the draft, just out of good scouting and good sort of research. I don't know if you think that that's the case, because I know you and for example, Jake Robertson did suffer for some bad luck during the Pro Series.
Yeah, no, of course. But I think everyone had a little bit of bad luck in the pro qualifying series. It was a bit all over the place. But I do agree. I think that middle portion of the pack is very, very close. And very often in qualifying, you know, the order would shuffle around quite a lot every time. Not because one of us was having a bad performance as such. It was just we were that close that every millimeter on track mattered. And, you know, if one driver got something slightly better than the other, it made a big impact. That might have been 3-4 spots gained on the qualifying grid for them. So I do think it is very, very interesting to see which of us is able to sort of come out on top. I know a few of us have a few little rivalries going on, myself and Jake included. We're always throwing as much shit at each other as we can. But no, I think it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. And I think it will be interesting because I think in many respects, the battle for Rookie of the Year, especially for those of us that aren't Yohann Harth, that could almost be a mini championship in itself as who's top of the pro qualifying series in the World Championship. Underrated
now. Tommi Mäkinen on 23%. Why is that? Tell me more about Tommi Mäkinen. I like the dude, and I want to know why people think he's underrated.
So Tommi Mäkinen was someone that probably at the start of the season ran a little bit mid-pack. He wasn't particularly, doing anything outlandish. He wasn't getting any massively dramatic results as such. And this is bearing in mind that he had only got iRacing 1 month before pro qualifying started. And he was already competing quite well at top split right from the start, getting midfield finishes. But then around mid-season, something clicked for Tommy, and he started getting poles. He started getting wins. He was leading laps very consistently. And I still think people had the mentality from the start of the season that perhaps he was a midfield runner, even though he was starting to win these races. He had to sit out at Lucas Oil because of a hand injury, so he wasn't able to properly get a result in there. And mostly due to that he wasn't able to score good points there, he finished down in 9th in the championship as well. So, 9th in the championship, it's nothing too special, to say he's a great driver or something. He's not someone that you'd probably look at as a top pick. from the pro qualifying series, but he is underrated in the fact that he's proven he can lead races from the front. He can get poles and he can win races as well. And he's got good racecraft. So I think in many respects, Tommi Mäkinen does fly under the radar way too much.
And we look at the cars for 2020. The intriguing fact is the Subarus clean swept the wins in 2019. That's because pretty much almost the entire grid chose the Subaru. Now, the differences there on screen between 2019 and 2020, can you describe to us the differences between the two? Because obviously we think, and do you agree that the balance of power is a little bit more even this year? The Subaru's been nerfed a little bit, to put it in slang terms. And the V-dub could potentially, as you can see the driver's preference, a lot of drivers, potentially including yourself, you chose the V-dub in preseason, could be running the Beetle.
Yeah, of course. So in 2019, the Subaru was definitely the dominant car, and as is represented by the win total as well. So what iRacing did post WCS season was they got rid of a little bit of the Subaru's power, and they also changed the center of gravity of the car. So basically the entire balance of it through the corner, the mid corner, and how it adapts with load as well through the mid corner completely changed. It became quite a roly-poly car. It was a lot softer feeling as well. And that sort of hurt its lap times as well in the over most of the tracks, of course, with the odd exception. So overall, the Subaru is a little bit slower than it was in 2019 WCS trim. But with how the track wear is working for the series, what we're going to expect to see is the track is going to be reset in between sessions a lot more often now. So we'll be running on a much more fresher track. So it'll be much looser dirt for the most part. And that is where the Subaru excels. The Subaru loves the loose dirt. So even though it's a little bit less power and less agile, the change to the track grip and how it's actually going to be wearing in over the event may just keep it in as one of the more favorable cars. But I'm not saying I'm driving the Volkswagen, but you'll see at least one Volkswagen on the grid, that's for sure.
It's a good point you bring up. I really hope that if they do reset the track, it's once. I know from a driver's perspective, you want it a bit more because you don't want that one line that everyone dominates.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, I mean, in the preseason, how many times did it reset this morning at fucking 4 a.m. in the morning when we raced? Was it once or was it 0 times? It didn't reset at all.
So it actually reset twice. So what we had on was, so it reset before qualifying, which is a bit of a controversial one, which a few of us are arguing, because what that meant was having a completely clean track for qualifying was those of us in the Volkswagens and Fords really couldn't compete.
You got no chance.
For reference, Vincente Salas, Volkswagen, was first in practice. I was second in practice. And I believe I was the top Volkswagen qualifying in 9th. And with all the top 8 being Subarus. So that's one thing a few of us have been quite vocal about since that race. We want to see it not reset before qualifying. And then the second reset that happened was before the warm-up. And that one, I think most of us are pretty okay because we get that time to wear the track down in the warm-up before the feature. But of course, it's the qualifying one that's debatable. And if that doesn't get changed, I can see a lot of people swaying the direction of the Subaru.
That's the big thing is do you do that reset after qualifying for the heats and then do the other? I like the second reset. I think that's at a good spot.
Yep.
And there was a point where when you look at the lap time sheets, did you set the fastest lap during the feature?
I came extremely close. I was 100th slower than Yohann.
Oh, okay. So I looked at that wrong. But yeah, I did notice that you were very close towards the end of the race looking at the timing screens in comparison to him. And so, and that included you, by the way, in some scraps and some battles. So the V-dub, with the longer a feature goes, the more the track's going to come to you. Obviously, the Fiesta's best on a completely worn track with no resets. If that's the case, let's say iRacing, and this is never going to happen, if iRacing go, hey, we're not doing any track resets, would you switch to the Ford Fiesta?
It would definitely become a consideration, and I know I wouldn't be the only one, because of course, the reason why the Ford is very good on a completely worn track is because it's got a very narrow wheelbase. So when the track is worn, that's a really fine groove that you have to be driving in. It's a smaller car, so quite frankly, you've got a lot more margin for error compared to something like the Subaru, which is basically just a land yacht of a car. So that's why the Ford does become quite strong, because it can just stay so much more consistent. So that's not to say that the Subaru and the Volkswagen can't compete with the Ford on a worn track, but the Ford just makes it so much easier to hit consistently.
Well, the good news is for 2020, we're going to see less Subarus. Not that I don't like the Subaru, but I like to see a variance of different cars being used. And if you couple these cars with a good circuit, you get some good racing displays. And Josh Fox found all that out after he had a poor getaway in the heats and had to find his way back through the field to enter the feature. Let's have a look at his round 3 dilemma in our 2019 highlights. Joined by Matt Adams soon enough once he joins the grid there. It looks like a bowling alley at the moment, Randy, when you look at the start, doesn't it? Looks like I could throw a bowling ball down there.
I don't like that comparison, because that puts some presumption on what the end results might be.
Well, let's hope it's clean for the start here. The final heat of the day for round 3. Oh, one driver didn't get off the line at all. I think that's Josh Fox. Josh Fox has stalled. Issues for the Williams eSports driver.
I don't think Josh Fox transfers out of this C main. I think he's going home after this.
Well, it's going to be tough, exactly. I mean, I really hope he does, but I really hope, I'm not trying to sound too nice, you really hope all 8 do. But that's not the way we do this competition. 2 will advance to the feature out of this consolation race. It's the same format as the heats. The lights illuminate, and we go green for the first consolation race of the day. Holman threw it into the first corner. Somehow all 3 only make a slight touch, and there's just absolute carnage here heading into what is now the final corner. And it's going to be a drag race to turn 1. It looks like Zalenski has the lead over Holman. Josh Fox with a good getaway.
Yeah, he might make me eat my words here. He's already up to P3. Lurking behind him is going to be Michael Guest in 4th. And then Garrett Maines, who's your pole sitter, gets shuffled all the way back to P5. And he gets into the back of Michael Guest, who I think got a slowdown going up the hill and quickly got out of the way. But now Zalenski and Holman will fight for the lead. And Holman, what a move around the outside of the Californian to Zalenski. Something's wrong with Bobby. I think he's got a slowdown.
Yeah, he got a slowdown. He hit the first cone in the carousel, and he tried to get rid of it, but was unable to. Replay's up on screen. While that's taking place, Holman and Fox took to the Joker, but this is Zalenski clearing that slowdown penalty. If you're new to iRacing, if you cut the track, you have to slow down a certain amount given to you locally.
And Josh Fox! Josh Fox at the inside of Tommy Holman for the race lead up the carousel. My apologies for doubting you, Josh Fox. He goes into the race lead.
I looked down and thought Josh Fox was going to stay in 2nd through the carousel. I look up and he's in 1st, Randy, within a second. Welcome back, Josh Fox, to the 2nd year running of this preview show. You appeared last year. Didn't really appear. You voiced yourself on last year. This time you've got a camera. We can see your beautiful face. Welcome along.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We just watched your brilliant comeback at Sonoma, where you remember when you stuck the handbrake and you had that pretty poor start, ended up reclaiming it in the LCQ. I mean, what a race that was. To me, that was. So what happened again? You didn't stall the car. It was the actual handbrake that you accidentally left engaged.
Yeah, the handbrake I was using at that time had a little hang up on the input, where if you held it back for too long, it would just stay back when you released it. And so I got a good Fanatec Club Sport V1.5 this year, and I haven't had any problems with that. It's been pretty solid for me so far.
I can see Cheppy's gotten in your head too much because you're trying to challenge him for one of the world's best sim racing rigs.
Well, you know, it's great to be able to partner with a group like Williams eSports, and they're great partners. We got place seat, and I'm super comfortable and set up here in this awesome chair. It's great setup and should be a good setup for the World Championship this year. You've actually really already mastered your political answers now with fitting. I think you fit in as many sponsors as you could in 30 seconds there, and actually sold them off really well. The good news for you now is that you have a teammate this year, and not only a teammate, it's an official world champion in iRacing Rallycross in Sami-Matti Trogen. But here's the awkward thing I find.
you had Joni Heikkinen in 2018 with pretty much testing on his own. Has his best year, could have won the championship. Just missed out in the final round to Mitchell de Jong. He works with a great team, which includes Sami-Matti Trogen the next year in said eSports. Has a worse year. And I was thinking, okay, there's got to be something else to it. It's got to be either lack of motivation or there's something up to it. And that's pretty much what was the answer for Joni Heikkinen. For you now, you've gone from no teammate to now having teammates. Is the motivation still high? Do you reckon you'll show a bit of improvement because you got a good benchmark to compare yourself with?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there will be considerable improvement. I mean, anytime you get to test with the world champion like Sammy, it's a really big deal, and I'm super glad and super excited to be able to work with him this year. To start the year last year, I felt like the pace was okay. Speed was okay. We were getting okay finishes, just based off some carnage. But it took me a bit to get into the year, and through more hosted practices, running group practices with a lot of the World Championship guys, where I was able to start really learning more about what the car needs. So I feel like this season working with Sammy is just getting a head start on that and being able to, hit the ground running full speed, in the earlier rounds.
You had 2018, your first win, which was at was that at Lucas Oil again? Yes, it was Lucas Oil. Then you had your first pole last year. I'm thinking 2020. What to you is a disappointing year for you, and what's a good year in 2020 in terms of achievements? Or are you going to give me that political answer where, like, the same answer I would give if I was a driver, like, oh, I'm just taking it round by round and just sort of ease the pressure off yourself?
I feel like every year is different. This upcoming year, a lot of new names. I think bigger changeover than we had last year from the first year. So it's going to be a lot different, but the expectation is the same. I'm here to win races. I'm here to win the championship. I feel confident to be able to do that, especially ending the season last year with a strong podium. There was just a few really unfortunate breaks in rounds 7 through 8 or 9 last season, and really set me back in the points. But that's RX. Sometimes the breaks go your way, sometimes they don't. But doing everything I can to put myself in the best spot on the grid each week is the goal. Going for the win every week, and like I said before, being able to test with Sammy and build that platform is a great foundation to be able to have that success.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well this year we've got obviously the real world teams involved. Doesn't really affect you considering you were already signed with Williams. They've gotten the license. Unofficially now, I can't really say who the other teams are, although I've gotten a 14-team unofficial list. But that will be revealed shortly. How good's this exposure for the series? I think it's, to me, the market and the possibilities for the viewership, and there are some drivers, like I know yourself, like you're definitely interested, and you do some real world racing yourself, in sprint cars. Some other drivers don't give a shit. I think for guys like you especially, it's a good thing. You can branch out in the real world with a real world team and get to do your stuff in the sim racing world, potentially profit off both. Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to be able to cross those lines. That was one of the things that helped me get the RX2 test at Mid-Ohio last fall. That was an unbelievable opportunity. It's a shame they kind of went under for this year. But yeah, you're right. And I suppose I won't say too much, but I can say that Williams actually is partnering with one of the real world RX teams. We're looking at partnering with Hanson Motorsport, and so they're taking me and placing me to represent Williams Hanson Motorsport, and I'll be formally the teammate with their RX2 driver,
Henrik Krogstad.
Right. And Sammy will stay to represent Williams eSports, but we'll still work together, and there's going to be an alliance there. So it really just grows the numbers, grows the base, and more people to test with exclusively, and should be a really exciting opportunity. We'll see a lot of potential roots planted there for the future as well, for real world opportunities as well.
Are you sad that there's no more Bobby Sant Jr. or Stelian Chepelevsky in the series now? Two of your good friends.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I knew about Bobby. I didn't quite know about Stallion until I looked at the
Pro Series results.
The lineup. Yeah, the lineup for this year. I didn't realize he was not even locked in. I had just assumed he was locked in, but yeah, it's different. Like I said before, I mean, that's just part of the changeover from this year is huge. You know, with the new drivers, guys not returning that were mainstays first 2 years, so it's going to be a lot different.
That Fusion Racing tree back from 2018, it really branches out. You got guys now all over the place. It reminds me of that, like, you know, that sports team, like the NBA team, who had all these young guys who were on the same roster together somehow, and all the young coaches, like the Spurs, for example, where you look at their like 2014 coaching stuff and you're like, oh my God, all these guys are like Coach Bud's Coach of the Year now. Popovich, one of the greatest of all time. You had Brett Brown with the Sixers for like 7 years, and it just keeps going on the list. And I'm like, man, this is like the Fusion Racing tree.
Yeah. You wish Brett worked a little better in Philly, but yeah, we have a good time, and I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys. And we had a big deal going there at the end of that first year. We had picked up a couple of the other drivers that were in the World Championship that first year, and if everything had worked out the same way without, you know, people getting picked up by other teams, we would have had probably about 10 drivers or so on the grid for that next World Championship. So, but it's great. I mean, we still keep in touch and all that, and kind of, you know, jump into sessions. Always happy to run laps together, stuff like that.
All right, it's my favorite part of the preview show. We had some great fun with this last year. It's the betting markets at Fake Vegas Bets. These are legit. Forward your money to me. You probably won't receive it back ever again. We've got champion odds. Mitchell de Jong's at 8-4. I did the math, Bo, when I was making these odds, and 8-4, I think was 50%. I can't even remember, but it means he's got a high chance of winning the championship compared to the rest of these guys.
Well, it's definitely a safe bet, of course, with the amount of form he's been on. Absolutely, we'll see what he can do. But 3-1 for Sami-Matti Trogen, so not too many people really feeling the love there for the reigning champion.
Well, not too many people, including me. Well, he is second on the list, so give him that. Joni Ollikainen at 51-1 is. And Tommy Horman, like, that can be a steal. Like, they can potentially win this championship. I'm thinking, like, you put $10 on that, you're $500 richer. I think that's probably the best bet out of all five of them, along with Yohann Harth at 13-1.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think if you put money on Ollikainen or Horman for the win, I think you're going to be eating good for quite some amount of time with the amount of money that you'd be winning from that. So happy days there. And, of course, Otto Taskinen and as an outside shot as well. I think you really can't go wrong with any of those three fins.
You go to feature race winners. Now, you're going to notice a few names are missing. Off the top of my head, I can already see de Jong, Trogen, Harth. I think they're the only three missing. So Vegas aren't giving odds on them, which means they almost think they're guaranteed to win at least one feature race. Do we think Bobby Zalenski is going to win his first feature race this season? He's by far entered the statistic is he's entered the most feature races without a victory. Surely his time will come.
I'm going to say it's not going to come. And that is only because, of course, he is doing so well in the eNASCAR series on iRacing as well, that I think he's going to dedicate so much time toward that. And sadly, I think Rallycross might be put slightly in the background for him. And I don't think he's going to quite dedicate the time that he needs to get a race win this season.
I've got Harth versus Fox, just like I did last year. And Harth is favored to finish ahead of Josh Fox. He won by 7 points over Josh Fox last year, and that was with the mega point system, not the one we've got for 2020. I think Harth is, obviously, we know he's proven to be quicker than Josh Fox. Last year, Yohann had 1 win compared to 0 for Josh, 4 poles compared to 1, but he also had 2 DNFs compared to Josh Fox, and that's why he was only 7 points ahead of him. It's like a stock market index. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like a good reference point, these two, comparing them to each other. Consistency versus raw speed.
Yeah, it's very much balancing the two and which one you'd rather have. Of course, Yohann with all his speed, but Josh always seems to find a way into the feature and be able to sneak some results here and there as well. And of course, the odd race win as well. So interesting to see how that goes. Josh Fox, you know what? I'm going to be the outside bet here. I'm going to put my money on Josh Fox this time around.
Rookie of the year now, Joni Ollikainen. I mean, we've seen him as favorite for sure. But like I said, the odds there between Vicente Salas to Jake Robinson to Rasmus Toivonen and to all the rest of the guys, Kilian Delolmo as well. I told you about the draft, right? From second onwards, it really is, and these odds don't show it, but I think it's pretty even between these guys. I think anyone from Rasmus Toivonen, Tommy Mäkinen, yourself, and Kilian, those are a steal of odds. Any of the you four guys could easily win it, as much as Jake Robinson or Yoni or Alari or Vicente.
Well, absolutely. So I'm just looking at the list, and I actually believe, unfortunately for Kilian, all of those drivers listed as for Rookie of the Year, apart from Kilian, one broadcasted softs in the pro qualifying season. So in that regard, you know, including Kilian, he's obviously always up there on the pace as well. We've all proven we've got the pace. We're all fairly similar. We can win races. We know how to handle that pressure as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be extremely close. So I think if you're going to put your money anywhere, I mean, I'm just saying, probably throw it my way. I'll do my best for you guys. But
yeah,
the likes of Rasmus Toivonen, Tommy Mäkinen, Kilian, you know, on 32-1, that's a big margin for profit. So that's a nice place to put your money if I was a betting man.
And some drivers such as Kilian and even Jonathan Paillet, their iRacing experience, I think, is a little bit limited compared to some other drivers. So I think potential-wise, they have room to grow throughout the season. Whereas you look at some of the other names who have been on iRacing for quite some time, like including yourself, who maybe, you know, they might accelerate their improvement a lot quicker compared to you, if that makes sense, you know, because you've sort of got all that knowledge they don't. The next bet here is by far my favorite. USA or Finland to win a race for a driver. If you bet on this, you owe Vegas money if it happens, essentially, because it's at 99 cents. But if you know what? I'm taking the gamble on this, Bo. I say, hey, I'm going to put like $50, right, on no. And you know what? It's probably $50 I'm never going to see ever again for my entire life. But if there is a situation where, for example, Yohann Harth wins every single race of the season and wins the championship, I could be richer than Jeff Bezos.
You absolutely could. I don't even know what 50 times whatever on God's earth number that is.
Is that billion, I think? Or a trillion? No, it's billion.
I'll tell you right now, I've not seen that much money in my bank account, and I don't think I will. But that is just astronomical. And I think even if you put 20 cents on that, you're going to come out in a pretty good position if it happened.
I should hide like the little Japanese yen symbol next to it to trick people so that they'll send me all this money. And I know that, you know, USA and Finland are going to win a race. And I'm like, oh, they thought they were going to win billions of dollars, but it's actually like, you know, 15 Australian dollars that they were actually going to win for 470 billion Japanese yen, or whatever the conversion is. And then the final one, for those not familiar with the Mierda de Toro, it means the shit of the bull. It's the award for how many cars actually end up on their roof throughout the season. We were at 13 last year. The over-under's at 9.5. But have there been any updates to the carbo to make it potentially heavier, easier to race? Because if the car's as light as it was in 2019, I could be betting over on this to see more than 10 cars on their roof.
I think it's going to be interesting because, of course, I think the biggest factor for this particular bet is that with the track not being as worn now, the cars don't really get as gripped up through some of the high-load corners and the slow-speed corners with the big direction change as well. So the likes of the Ford and the VW, they're unlikely to get on two wheels as much as they did in the previous season. So I think in many cases, when it comes to not contact rollovers, this is probably one of the worst seasons for it. I don't think we're going to see many grip rolls at all. If there's going to be contact, it's going to be interesting because I think Hell, especially the opening two corners there is a lot of potential to see cars rolled over. So it's a weighing up game. Do you think there's going to be more contact with the new circuit of Hell being included, or the less amount of cars grip rolling?
Well, we could see it at the start at Hell with the
absolutely
5-6 wide starts. There could be some good pile-ups. That's going to be something where, in all honesty, I hope it works out two ways. I hope we don't see many cars on their roof this season, but if there are, I'll be happy because it gives me an end of season compilation reel to create like I did last year and in the review show. So I'm not complaining either way. It's entertaining one way or the other. But that's it, Bo. The preview show's done. Yet another year. We've done it, man. I wish I could high five you, but with the COVID-19 lockdown, we can't.
Sanitizer. Where's the hand sanitizer?
I can't really do it. I'm not sticking my palm into my camera. But anything to plug for you? You're still sorting out your team. You know, you've got your YouTube channel now, which is, let's actually mention that, which has grown exponentially over the past 12 months.
Yeah, no, it's gone really well. I haven't quite been able to dedicate the time to my YouTube channel that I would have liked, but the viewership's been incredible and all the comments and everything has been super, super supportive. So massive thank you to everyone that has followed on my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, it's just Bo Albert, Beau and Albert. I try to post at least twice a month at the moment. With Rallycross World Championship, it's a little difficult to get more videos out, but I'll see what I can do for you guys. And once again, thanks for all the support. Yeah,
trying to edit all this stuff on your own, which I know I've done for years, and the level of quality, like you put out those videos, it's almost impossible to try and do and still work and try and manage your life and all that, and try and get 2 videos out a month is a great achievement. So that to me is tough, man. I feel you. I feel where you're coming from. And you got to manage that as well with trying to be quick and win a world championship this year. How do you rate your chances, by the way? What are your goals for the season?
So I don't want to go into this series expecting any kind of results. I think that's probably the worst way to go about it because Rallycross is just way too chaotic. There's too many variables that go on. So simply go into each race knowing that I've prepared 100% mentally, physically, and on the sim. And yeah, just make sure I give 100%, see what results I can get. Ideally, I think I'd like to walk away with at least one podium in the season. I don't know if a win's quite on the cards. But I mean, hey, if an opportunity comes up, I'll give it a crack. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Best of luck. Obviously, for all the viewers at home, don't let round one deceive you because there are some guys who test like maniacs, and you know, especially for the first round of every championship, and then their pace drops off or they never show up again, and you get all those guys. It's about the entire season. And how the season progresses. So that's most important for sure. The 2020 iRacing Rallycross World Championship. Let me fix my microphone here. It's presented by Yokohama this year, and it will commence on the 26th of September. And that's where we head to Hell for round one of a 9-round championship, of course. There's going to be 9 thrilling rounds, just as we had in 2019. Coverage will begin at 6 p.m. GMT, 4 a.m. Australian time, and then 5 a.m. Australian time after our summertime kicks in. Which one do you prefer, Bo? Neither of them?
Definitely 5 a.m. Definitely 5 a.m. That 1 hour means so much to me.
Yeah, it's I'm telling you, there was last year where when I had to commentate, it was at the same time. I would actually, some nights would go to sleep if I didn't have anything on that Saturday night, and then wake up at like 3 a.m. for like a 4:30 start or something like that. Yeah. But there were some rounds where I think like half the rounds, obviously it's a Saturday night and you and I are young. We go partying, we do different stuff. Sometimes I would like hit a party or go somewhere and then come home at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., obviously sober and ready to go for some serious work. And then I think there was one round where I'd like lost my voice almost. I think it was, I don't know if it was the round at Phoenix or Daytona or something like that, but unfortunately, crying this year, we can't really do that because everything's closed. It's a bit depressing to bring up.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's not how I wanted to end the podcast.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. But anyway, I'm depressed now. There we go. I'm joking. The Simon Racing Report 2. Thanks for watching. It's available at the SimonRacingReport.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Our handles are right there at the bottom of the video, or I'm at Johnny S8. You are, what are you, Bo? At Bo Albert, is it? Bo Albert 06?
That's it. That's correct.
That's correct. Give Bo a follow too. He's been splendid. Very thankful for him to come on. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you soon. More episodes coming soon in the future. We've got the Supercars E-Series coming up. We've also got the rest of the Formula One season. Might get a few podcasts in on that. Who knows? As well as the review shows for all these series. But for now, though, we'll see you later.